Hello and welcome back to Old Testament 12-Step Recovery. My name is Boruch. I'm an alcoholic, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the second step as it relates to the book of Genesis. This is the continuing weekly, one step at a time, going through the Old Testament. It's a following on the first 52 episodes of this channel, which deal with recovery in general as it relates to the Old Testament, going through the Old Testament from the beginning of Genesis to the end of Deuteronomy. So today we're going to talk about Genesis 2:15, which says, God took the man and placed him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to guard it. So if you're familiar with the Genesis story, we're at the very beginning. The man in question here is Adam. After God created the world, if you believe that God created the world, and the purpose of this channel is to, suggest that the Bible is real and that God created the world and God created human beings. If you don't believe that, then I still think there's something you can get out of this. I'm not trying to force anybody to believe anything, but it's what I believe. Anyway, so God created the world, God created the Garden of Eden, God created a man called Adam, and he placed him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to guard it. So we're in the very beginning of the history of the world and the universe, and we're in the very beginning of the Bible. So a question comes up, what does this mean that God placed Adam in the garden to work it and to guard it? So let's talk. There's two assignments here: work it and guard it. So first, let's talk about working the garden. Adam didn't really have to do any work. Our sages teach us that the garden was perfect. It had the food. It was perfect. There was nothing. He didn't need anything. And it was only later, when Adam was thrown out of the garden, that he had to learn how to work the land and grow his own food. So basically, Adam could just, if he wanted to, sit around all day and just, take food off the trees and eat it. And guard it. Guard it from whom? There were no other human beings in the world at that point. So the question is, what is going on here? So one interpretation is that God had a very simple assignment for Adam, which was to guard his holiness, to work on himself, to work on his spiritual perfection and guard his spiritual perfection, to develop his God consciousness and perfect himself as a human being in the eyes of God. So it's one of those simple assignments, but maybe not so easy. It's good that Adam was able to be in a garden, a quiet garden, first by himself and then with his wife Eve. That was at least the idea, right? And there were some problems that came up. But for the purpose of the second step, which is came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity, I think there's a way to make a connection between this biblical verse and the second step. Second step is one of the most important steps in AA. And of course, all the steps are important. It's really useful for us to work all the steps. We get sober by working all 12 steps. But if you don't take the second step, the rest of the 12 steps will not make a lot of sense and they really won't work. If the first step is to just acknowledge that you have a problem, and boy, that is a really big step for all of us. Wow, I have a problem. I need to do something about it. That's a big step. But then the question is, what do you do after you've realized, acknowledged, admitted that you have a problem and that your life has become unmanageable? Well, the second step is really the gateway to the rest of recovery. You came to believe that a power greater than yourself could restore you to sanity. What is that power? That power is God. God, who created the universe, who created the Garden of Eden, who created all of us. God created Adam and Eve and created you and me. Only God can restore us to sanity and get us out of addiction into recovery. So the connection with the verse is, at least to me, is that God had a purpose for Adam in Adam's life. God was the power in Adam's life. God had an assignment for Adam to work the garden and to protect it, to work on himself, and to perfect God's universe in spiritual strength and growth. So I think we can learn something from this, some recovery thoughts from this biblical verse for the second step. And I would ask a general question. What do you think is God's mission for you in recovery and life in general? Just as God placed Adam in the Garden of Eden to work it and to guard it, God placed you in this world. God placed me in this world for a reason. What is our purpose in life? When we turn to a power greater than ourselves to restore us to sanity, why are we doing that? I mean, obviously, the main goal is to stop drinking and to regain control over our lives with God's help, but there is usually a bigger purpose. And this, I think, will power us through recovery. If we understand God's purpose for us, then our life will become more meaningful and our recovery will be better. And one thing is, it may not be obvious. Certainly not in early recovery. It may not be clear at all what God's purpose is for us in life. And it's something that may become clearer over time or not. I believe that even the process of searching for God's purpose in our life, for purpose for us in life, is important in recovery. And maybe one day you'll wake up and say, "Yep, I got it. I know what God's purpose for me in life is, and my purpose is to help other addicts stay sober, or my purpose is to, support my family, or my purpose is to, write a special song and sing it to the world." Whatever it is, God has a purpose for you in life. And the other question to ask as you go through the steps is, and this is also kind of a first step question and also a fourth step, did our addiction interfere with our purpose in life? I mean, I'm pretty confident the answer is yes for most of us. Addiction destroys our God-given purpose in life, and it is terrible when you realize the opportunities that you've lost. What have we missed out on in our life's purpose because of the power of alcohol and drugs and other addictions? This is something to reflect on in later steps, but it also can help us as we think about this. If the choice in the second step is came to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity, or we're not quite ready to believe that, right? Because sometimes we're not ready to take a step. If you're not ready, ask yourself, did our addiction interfere with our God-given purpose in life? Because if the answer is yes, then maybe you can believe that a power greater than yourself will restore you to sanity. So my suggestion for today is think about this. What will you do to get in touch with God's mission for you in life and recovery? Think about that. You can do this every day. Just as recovery is a one day at a time process, so too can your awareness of God grow one day at a time. And this video is based on material I wrote in my Old Testament 12-step recovery workbook. If you're interested in this, I'd encourage you to visit the site. You can order the book on the link below. Just have to do a little plug like this at the end of the video. Thank you for being with me today, and I hope you'll come back. And as always, I wish you strength and success in recovery.